Monsieur Anber,
Monsieur Casarin,
how are you doing?
Happy New Year.
Yeah, well, I mean, as we do the first show, the first conversation, first podcast of the 2021 calendar year, after the Ryan Garcia fight from this past weekend, which was the big fight, which we'll get to, of course, and will be the main topic of tonight's discussion. And I think it's always a courtesy thing of Happy New Year, although the rules of when it should end Happy New Year, like I'm a fan of actually, I think even now at this stage, about a week into it, it's already a bit too late. And 2021 so far has looked like 2020 season two. So we're hoping that the happy part can kick in at one point. But I appreciate the sentiment, and I wish you a happy new year as well, Russ.
It's only because it's our first podcast of the year, so I felt it appropriate to say. Julia Sullivan put out a great post today. I don't know if you saw it on Instagram, where it said, "We're into the first 7 days, and I want a refund on year 2021." And I tried it, and I want to send it back. My 7-day free trial is over, and it's, with everything that went on yesterday on what would be Wednesday at the Capitol, it's just craziness again, just seems to have spilt over from last year. However, I digress. I need to change something.
Need to change what?
From last year.
Okay.
We did our kind of like impromptu awards last year, and just at the end of
nothing too official, because 2020, although it picked up towards the end of it, and then at the beginning there were some important fights, for a long stretch there wasn't much going on. So most fighters had only about one fight to two in some cases, but for the most part.
But I made a mistake. I need to withdraw my selection on something. Take it back, because I made a mistake.
You made a mistake.
I made a mistake. I said, and maybe this was just being influenced by what I saw online. And, a lot of the stuff that I see online is, sort of American content, if you will, North American content, if you will.
Right.
And then right after we did the show, I realized, you clown, you made the biggest mistake of all. And I believe I picked Tank's Gervonta Davis's knockout over Leo Santa Cruz as the knockout of the year. And upon reflection, I kicked myself for such stupidity of doing that. And I want to take back that, because, you knocked out a smaller guy, great punch, but a visibly smaller guy than yourself you knocked out. The knockout of the year, in my opinion, is that beautiful one-punch knockout that Povetkin laid on Dillian White. So Povetkin is my winner for knockout of the year over Dillian White.
Well, both fighters came with that uppercut knockout, right? In the case of Povetkin, it was from the lead left hand, Davis from the left hand, being of a southpaw, so his power shot, but both were beautiful uppercuts. And
both lead hands, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe Povetkin, were you influenced now by the gloves he was wearing for the knockout? Does that have anything?
Well,
to do?
It certainly helps, but more about the guy he knocked out that makes it even more special. But
why? There's still some bad blood from the Oscar Rivas fight.
Oh, there'll always be, that everything that went down there, everything that happened with the testing and the gloves and everything.
For those of you who are maybe not entirely following what we're talking about here, is that Oscar Rivas, a heavyweight fighter, one of the good heavyweight fighters, and now based in Montreal, who's originally from Colombia, that you work with, Russ, as a cut man and as an assist, and Mark Ramsey is his head coach, and he had a big fight. I believe it was it the summer of 2019? I'm lost now. So summer of 2019 against Dillian White.
Nothing happened in 2020, so that's the easy way to remember it. So
So anyway, so that fight, of course, had some controversy. Dillian White testing positive apparently, and the whole the controversy with the commission. But why are you taking a shot at Dillian White though? You're saying that he also is partly responsible for the commission stuff, or just for what he took in his body and not admitting it?
Look, the body stuff to me is that's up to the regulatory bodies to take care of that. And the B sample suddenly goes missing. Everything seems to get swept under the rug. No one's able to have any answers. I thought that was wrong anyways. But the glove situation is what bothered me most. And take the credit, take the responsibility that you want to wear those gloves. No problem. Let us see the gloves. The fact that it was hidden, of course, I blame the representatives of the British Boxing Board of Control that were there. Of course, I blame them for not allowing us to see the gloves, because that's their role. That's their job, is to make sure that both camps see what the other's doing, have it transparent as well as much as it should be. The fact that we were denied that, Dillian is responsible for that. All he had to do was say, yep, let him see the gloves, no problem, because those weren't the gloves he selected at the rules meeting. So yeah, I think that was wrong. That was wrong to begin with, but what are you gonna do?
Interesting. But speaking of knockouts, this past weekend, boxing, the schedule came with a fight that was very interesting. We talked about it last week, how Luke Campbell would present a challenge to Garcia. The power, you weren't entirely sure if Campbell's power was going to be able to be a factor, and clearly it was in the second round with that amazing counter overhand left to Ryan Garcia. But Garcia ends the show in spectacular fashion with a left hook to the body that Campbell kind of pulls away with his right elbow a little bit like this. And that opening, Garcia sees it, comes in instead of Campbell being a bit more tucked in. And he got down and didn't get up. And it was a heck of a fight and a heck of a way to start a 2021 year that at the moment doesn't have a ton of scheduled fights on the horizon, especially for this month. But Ryan Garcia and Campbell, there's a lot to get to from that perspective. But initially, though, is it the win for Garcia? Is it more about his doubts now that he can go down with the way Campbell hurt him? Or do you give it even more credit now for Garcia stepping up and answering the critics? So, you know what? I went down, but I got back up and I finished the show.
Let's get this straight. He passed the chin check test with flying colors.
Well,
his head almost came off its shoulders with that shot. Now you would say, oh, Campbell's not a huge puncher, but he's still a good puncher, and it's early in the fight, and he's a strong kid, and he's a big kid, and he landed that.
I agree completely, Russ. I told you, Campbell has 16 knockouts and 20 wins. I thought he had above average power. You weren't sure, though, he had enough power to knock Garcia out.
He has plenty enough power, and I saw it up close, when I was in the corner with Loma. He's a strong kid, and the shot that he landed, you could not have landed more powerful. Now, could somebody hit harder? Of course, there could be somebody who hits harder, but that shot that he landed was debilitating. I mean, that shot hurt so much that it turned Garcia's head around like it was The Exorcist. He turned him right around. He actually was able to see where he was going to land, when he went down, and with his arm under him, he got hit with a hellacious bomb. Went down and got up as sturdy and as strong as you could possibly be after taking that kind of a shot. Never backed down, went right at him, was aggressive again right away, and ready to engage. I give full credit to Garcia for the chin check test. He got hit and he passed the test. And right now, there's not a lot of guys who could say that. Did he go down? Sure, he went down. He got hit with a heck of a shot. But full credit to him for getting back up and coming on to win in really dramatic fashion. And, it's sometimes you don't see those it's not often you see debilitating body shots. That was so debilitating that he got hit with the shot. There was a slight delayed reaction because he stepped back. Then he took one knee, and the pain was so bad, he took two knees. It literally crumbled him before your eyes. And this is why it's so important they talk about the shots that hurt you are the ones you don't see coming.
Correct.
Which is why it's so important for technique to be so perfect. Garcia got hit with a shot because his technique was bad in reaching out for a punch, got hit with a shot around, bang, gets dropped. Campbell reaches up for a top shot, gets hit with a body shot. Instead of just tucking everything in on one side and catching it or stepping away properly, that you don't see it. He exposed it, and it was there, and Garcia took it. Full credit to Garcia. Love him or hate him, doesn't matter. This kid comes to fight. He's full of confidence. He's full of piss and vinegar. He wants to come and fight, and he passed the test.
And here's the thing. He's 22 years old. He draws the crowd. Like, he's a needle mover, as they call in the business, because he has millions of followers already. This was his first fight, I would say, against a legitimate top 10 opponent.
And
he's
legitimate.
already
Campbell's legitimate. Olympic
exactly.
gold medalist, although that was controversial, but Olympic gold medalist, you know, he fought Loma, went the distance, never been stopped, you know, fought Linares. I mean, he's been in with some guys, right? Like the kid can fight. The kid can
Exactly. And
fight.
Garcia already has millions and millions of followers throughout social media. He draws a crowd. You know that if he's going to have, whether it's interviews, the interaction that you're going to get, he's going to bring attention. He's also now in the Reynosa camp for a few fights. You saw Canelo ringside, which we can get to a bit later on. He has the association still with Golden Boy. Like, he's a superstar, no doubt about it. And he has the cross promotional. Not only is he a superstar in the United States, but he has the Hispanic community behind him as well. So there's a lot of elements for Garcia that he's going to be in a pay-per-view star, even if some of his fights on the zone won't be pay-per-view. But we understand the concept here. And the thing that impressed me from the Garcia coming up is that when he went down and he's decided to get back up, he still fought as the aggressor. He fought less tentatively than Campbell did, I found. And at times, Campbell was there and he withstood the punches, and I thought he was going to engage a bit more. But Garcia continued to do offense, and that to me was impressive, because a lot of guys going down like that might have been, okay, let me try to just see what I can do here. Let me try and survive. But Garcia went right back at him and finished the show. And that's something that you have to say, listen, his confidence, I don't think is going to be affected by that shot. In fact, it may even give him more confidence knowing that he can get back up.
That's the thing. That's why I say he passed the chin check test. I don't care about the millions of followers who we have. I don't care. That's, to me, that's not indicative of how good you are as a fighter. The way he got hit, the way he got back up, the way he came back, his career was basically crumbling before everybody's eyes, before Canelo, before Oscar. Like it was dissolving on the zone, right? Like it was disappearing. If he gets blasted out in that round, the rebuild is enormous for him. You know, like it's a crushing, humiliating defeat to get knocked out in 2 rounds by anybody, you know, but Luke Campbell, right? You're supposed to be the star. This show is for you. And instead he turned that around and skyrocketed his popularity even more and proved he can fight. He has flaws. There's no doubt about it. There's still a few holes in the armor, but he's young, like you said, and he's only going to get better. And at that age, Canelo had flaws as well. So he's a guy who seems to want to learn. He seems to have respect for Canelo, even though he's confident and cocky. He can't overdo that with Canelo because that guy is always above you. You know what I mean? You could do that with your father. You could do that with another coach. You could do that with somebody else who you'd always be able to turn around and say, what do you know? You know, I've gone further. But he can't do that with Canelo. And the Reynosos, I don't think, would have taken him if they thought he was going to be a problem child, if he was going to be problematic in the gym, if they were going to have difficulty dealing with that. I think they saw something there. They took him on. And, you know, as he's going to mature, he's going to just get better. And to me, he's got the speed, he's got the power, and he passed this. This kid's going to have a lot of fun fights. He's going to be involved, win, lose, or draw. He's going to be involved in some great fights.
Well, the comparisons to De La Hoya have been around for a while. Not only the fact that De La Hoya is his promoter, but kind of that young, good-looking fighter who has a following, who's going to be in entertaining fights, is going to draw a crowd, but has flaws, right? De La Hoya didn't win all of his big fights. Many of the big fights that he won, even if he was the loss, I'm saying, he was the A side going in, but ended up losing fights, whether it was to Hopkins, Mayweather. There have been others, of course, that escaped me at the moment that De La Hoya was involved in, whether Felix Trinidad, right? So there's fights where he's the biggest name and he ended up losing, yet he's still a Hall of Famer. He's still a big star. And Garcia, there's 2 trains of thought here after this performance where you're saying he passed the chin test and people are saying, you know what? He's going to be maybe the best at 135. Don't give him Teofimo Lopez just yet, but other fighters, he's going to be able to really, with his speed and his power, go the distance here and do better than he has maybe against Luke Campbell. But others are saying, you know what? Tank Davis hits him with that same shot. He's not getting up. And now there's flaws defensively that he will not be able to defeat the Haneys, the Tank Davises, and the other top guys at 135.
You know, it's always easy to say, you know, if this guy hits you with that, well, it's not that guy, you know, and styles are everything. The size of Campbell, the southpaw style and size make a huge difference. Davis is going to do other things. You could say the same thing. You could turn around and say the same thing, which I hate necessarily making those comparisons. But Leo Santa Cruz hit Gervonta Davis with 3 right hands and never moved. He just stood there, took it, and then bang, landed the shot. It was out, right? Now, is he going to take those 3 right hands from
you mean if Davis gets hit by Garcia right hands, Davis is going to have a hard time as well.
Exactly. So the point is moot, if I don't know if you saw recently, there was last couple of days, there was a clip of Nevin Padgett, Canadian fighter, knocks down Tyson Fury. And I mean, knocks him down hard. Boom. If you look at that, you say, oh my God, if Wilder hits him with that, it's over. Well, that didn't happen either. So, I get hit with this, is things happen sometimes in boxing. Things happen. He got hit with a shot. He took it, came back. I see the positive, not the negative. That's a learning experience for him. That's a wake-up call for him that he took that shot and took it as well as he did. And I think now even gave more confidence to Canelo, to Garcia, to De La Hoya, to the fan base, that this kid's got the moxie that it takes. Look, there's always going to be a question of whether you like somebody or don't like somebody. Personalities get involved. This doesn't matter. This kid can fight. This kid comes to fight. He's not a fake. He comes to fight. Yes, he's got holes in his armor, but he comes to fight. So, next subject, because I think this guy is real, and it's easy to hate on somebody, but he did what he was supposed to do, and he did it in absolutely dramatic fashion. You could not have written a better script for your potential star, your superstar that you want. You couldn't have picked a better scenario. You couldn't have written a better script.
So you would not be of the mindset after the fight going and say, you know what, maybe we need a few more confidence builders here before we go after the big names.
He doesn't need, he doesn't need confidence builders. He's got confidence coming in abundance, coming out of his ears. Like there's no issue of confidence. He needs to be moved in the same way that they moved Canelo. They were confident, but it was strategic. Who they picked, who they went after. Doesn't mean you can just blindly throw this kid in with anybody, and think, oh, he's going to win, he's going to win. No, there's a way to do it, how to maneuver it, how to navigate through that in the right way, because you've got a guy who can fight, who's has a big media presence and a lot of following. He's a golden goose that's going to start laying some golden eggs. So you have to be careful. You can't just blindly throw him in. But this kid already's talking. He's ready to fight Davis now. Like he's talking it. He's not like other fighters who are saying, well, you know what? I'll let my promoter decide. And I don't know. And maybe I'm going on vacation. I'm not sure. Let's fight now. It's like he's talking right now. I'm making this fight. I'm calling it out. I want it. He's doing that. This is all going to enhance and make him even better.
And I agree completely. And before we get to some of the fighters he has been calling out in some of the matchups at 135, which is now probably the hottest division in boxing in terms of star power, there's something that happened in the judges' scorecard in this fight that I think we like to address. And that's the fact that in the second round where Campbell knocks Garcia down, one judge actually gave it a 10-9 round. Now, we know about the 10-point must system, but generally speaking, a knockdown is a 10-8 round. In some cases, you can have a 10-9 knockdown round where the fighter will score a flash knockdown and lose the rest of the round, so you only give it a 10-9. There's debate as to whether or not you have to give 10-8 officially. I don't think you have to if the fighter gets a flash knockdown or you're not sure that he won the round. But in this case, when Campbell scored that big left hand, if you're not giving that round a 10-8 round, what are you doing? Like, what is it going to take for you to have a 10-8 round?
This is why I say, we've seen so many, not only bad decisions this past year, but we've seen horrific scorecards. The one thing that we haven't seen is consequences and accountability for that level of incompetence. 11-1 Lopez against Lomachenko says, I can't ever judge another fight again. I can't. Maybe what I think is because there's no crowd, they have to make the decision on their own of who they thought won the round. And they're being exposed as not being able to.
Wait, in some cases there have been, like in this past weekend, there were a crowd. It's not a regular crowd, but there's some people there.
I was being slightly sarcastic, Mr. Casavant. I'm
That one
just
flew over
saying,
my head, pardon me.
clearly, like, I mean, they're having to make decisions for themselves. But if Luke Campbell could not get a 10-8 round out of that second round, he was not going to get, if he'd have murdered Garcia, they'd have disqualified him. I mean, he was not going to, from that judge, he was not going to get around.
The judge in question is Ray Desenko, who scored that round 10-8 and probably won't be
10-9.
10-9, exactly. Who should have scored a 10-8, but ended up scoring at 10-9. And but there's never really been much follow-up for judges. In some cases, once in a while, when there was the big controversial, whether it was CJ Ross, who had a terrible scorecard in Vegas years ago for the Canelo fight against Mayweather. Sometimes you see temporary suspensions and things of that nature, but there's not really a regulatory body that's going to always review what's going on, right?
Why? There should be. You have a fighter's destiny, his future, his financial possibilities in your hand. You have to be taken more seriously. You have to be more skilled at doing this job. It's incomprehensible that Terrence Crawford, Roy Jones, Andre Ward all see the fight with Lomachenko and Lopez as either a draw or 7-5. These guys are fight guys. They know what they're looking at. Then you have two judges who have it 11-1 and 9-3, like the kid wasn't even in the ring. And we know that that's not true. The real guys know that that's not true. And it bothers me a lot that there's no accountability for this. And the only thing they have to say is, that's the way I saw it. I scored the punches I saw. But let's get back a second to the 10-9, okay? Because this is where there's a massive misunderstanding among people of how knockdowns are scored. And the best example I could give, and I've given this example before on podcasts and in interviews, Badou Jack fought James DeGale. And in the first round, a relatively tame, feel them out kind of round. And you could all go back and watch this easily. It takes 6 minutes of your time, 3 minutes in the first round, 3 minutes in the last round. You go back and watch the fight. First round, relatively tame first round. In my opinion, Jack wins the round, is winning the round. Right at the very end, he gets dropped on the seat of his pants, kind of like with a half punch, half push shot that drops him on the seat of his pants because his feet squared up. He got sat on the seat of his pants. If that doesn't happen, or right up until that point, it's a Badou Jack 10-9 round. As a result of that feeble knockdown, and that's what it was. It was really, DeGale knew he didn't hurt him. Badou Jack knew he didn't hurt him. Everyone knew he didn't hurt him. As a result of that one little knockdown, that went from being a 10-9 round for Badou Jack to a 10-8 round for James DeGale. 3-point swing for James DeGale. Now, 10-8 round. In the last round, Badou Jack batters James DeGale from pillar to post, knocks him down, bloodies him, beats him up, and scores a 10-8 round. Those are both scored 10-8. And if you watch the round, they do not resemble themselves at all. The whole concept behind, and this is what people, again, fail to understand. You score a knockdown, you win the round 10-8. No matter what happens, it's a 10-8 round. So it's as if you're giving a knockdown 2 points, but every knockdown after that is 1 point. That's not true. The knockdown is worth the point. Now, who was winning the round is where you get that other point.
Exactly. So you could have had a debate that it could have been a 10-9 DeGale round instead of a 10-8 in that case.
Yes, you could have. That should have been.
And
at worst, 10-9. At worst,
yes.
10-9.
Yeah, exactly. But and that's why it says, like, if Campbell with that big knockdown only gets a 10-9 round, how does that make any sense when he has fights where he's going to win rounds by the narrowest of margins and he's going to get the same score attributed?
But but the difference in that was that the punch that Campbell landed, even if he'd have been losing the round, he would win the round on that one punch. Because in professional boxing, the one big shot makes a big difference. So if he's getting like outboxed, boom, that's the great equalizer. Okay, that gives him the round. So that punch alone gave him the round plus the knockdown. So, that's where you get a 10-8 round. Unless Garcia was winning the round so overwhelmingly, like Campbell's gone, ready to go. Oh, boom, he lands a shot. Okay. But besides that,
No.
inexcusable that you cannot write an 8 for that shot. Inexcusable.
I agree. And it also, I don't want to go off too much on the judging, but also this debate of all the time, the 10-10, right? You can't give rounds 10-10. This is myth that you cannot give 10-10. If in the narrowest of margins, you still got to give 10-9 somebody, but then you're saying when it's a big round and you win convincingly, it's also 10-9. I don't understand this hesitancy sometimes to give 10-10 scores when there's clearly no winner in a round.
That's right. It's asinine. Oh, no, give it to somebody. Commit, give it to somebody. So technically, you could take the first round where neither guy does anything. You award it to one guy. That first round ends up being the round that wins the guy the fight. It's stupid. There are even rounds. There's even innings in baseball. There's even periods in hockey. There's even scores in basketball. There can be an even round. And what's worse is the rounds where nothing really happens. You have nothing to go on. Don't award the guy the 1 point, which could be very, very valuable, the one round. In a 10-round fight, you've just given him 10% of the rounds by giving him that one round on nothing. Make it even. Keep the fight close. Good. You want to earn the rounds? Earn the rounds. You want to earn the point? Earn the point. Don't just give it away for nothing. And I hate that they do that. And you know me, I'm a proponent of scoring even rounds. If it's not clear, if you haven't won the round, if it's a back and forth fight, score it as such. That's what it's supposed to be, because you can't have an even round. It's a lot better than having a round in which one judge goes one way and one goes the other. Like that just goes to show you that they don't even agree on the rounds that they're scoring. But even though the final numbers might come up the same, the rounds that they're scoring might not even be right. And you're just picking a guy. Okay, flip a coin. Yeah, it could have gone this way. Yeah, it could have gone that way. No, if it could have gone either way, it's even. That's what it means. If it could have gone either way, that's what it means. It's even. What is it that they don't understand about that?
No disagreement from me here, but there are discouraged in commissions all the time. We hear about this, and even the unofficial judges on television discouraged from giving a 10-10 round. Sometimes in the first round, you see it. Outside of that, they almost never do it. But we can go about this subject for a long time. But before we get to something regarding Loma and Lopez, Garcia's future opponents, he's also very vocal. You talked about it, the way he was aggressive in the ring after even getting knocked down. He's still as aggressive after the fight, and more so than Canelo. Canelo has always been kind of, I want to fight the best, but he's never really called out people officially after fights. Garcia has been going back and forth on social media for months and months with Tank Davis. That hasn't stopped from this past weekend. They've been going at it. Tank Davis, the storylines would be great, of course, with the fact that he's with the Mayweather camp. Garcia has ties with Canelo and Oscar De La Hoya, who know Mayweather very well. The bad blood, and it would be a major fight. There's also Devin Haney, who has a WBC title that Eddie Hearn would like to match against Ryan Garcia. So if you look at the 135 names, what's the fight you would like to see most for Ryan Garcia? And do you think he's the best in the lightweight division now among those young up-and-coming fighters, maybe outside of Teofimo Lopez, who I think is clearly a bit of a step ahead?
Look, the lightweight division almost overnight has lit up. It's become a very hotly contested division, and it's about time. The fight I'd like to see for Ryan Garcia is Gervonta Davis. That's the fight I'd like to see. Then I'd like to see Devin Haney fight Teofimo Lopez, because there's that controversy about the belt. Who's got which WBC belt. Let's get that sorted right away. Then I'd like to see Lomachenko fight somebody else. I don't know whoever somebody else might be, and let him earn that shot of the rematch against Lopez. Lopez, in my opinion, I'm not saying it has to be immediate. They fight each fight in between. Loma proves he's back and worthy of that shot, and that the scoring was closer, and that he should get the rematch. Lopez either wins or beats Devin Haney, gains the title, says, this is it. Now I'm proving that I'm wiping out the division. First in line, Lomachenko. Any controversy, any upsetness about the scoring, shoulder not happy, boom, we settle it now. What's the worst that happens? He wins. He beats Lomachenko for the second time. He makes history. He's the guy who beat one of the greatest fighters ever in the division. Perfect for him. He loses in a fight, in a close fight, probably. He loses. Boom, there's a third fight trilogy. This is what boxing was built on. This is the history of boxing, of trilogies and coming back and, proving your supremacy over a guy, coming back and winning the two fights. This is what makes boxing great. So I think that's a fight that has to be made. That's how I see it playing out. And I also, I'm not happy about, how people are dismissive of Lomachenko. All of a sudden he loses to Lopez, and all of a sudden 5 guys jump ahead of him that Lopez is like at the bottom of the barrel now. That's ridiculous. Lopez fought a fantastic fight. Lopez is a great fighter, beautifully composed. He was patient. He took a bigger risk than all these guys have taken so far. Bigger risk than Haney, bigger risk than Garcia. He took on the biggest risk of all in fighting somebody like Lomachenko. He took on the best, clearly the best. And I think the people that come along and, are dismissive of Lomachenko, I think is wrong. So, I that's the way I see right now the lightweight division kind of playing out.
Well, it's interesting because Loma hasn't been very vocal about wanting to fight anyone other than the Lopez rematch. So wait and see if he's going to have an opportunity to fight somebody else, or if Lopez is going to fight Devin Haney, possibly. As you said, it could be an option. And to get to Loma here, we talked last week about the comments from the surgery and how he wants the rematch, how he still maintains that he won the fight. Now there's some controversy for the boxing fans here. For years, we've been talking about, and even decades now at this point, CompuBox and the statistics of piling up punches that broadcasts have used, and HBO kind of really put in the forefront years ago of how it's a part of the broadcast that adds to numbers. It probably also helps people who have less of a trained eye to determine who has connected of power shots, jabs, etc., volume punching. Now, Loma and his father reviewed the fight and made some comments, interesting here, that were in an article this week from Sean Nam in Boxing Scene, which he disagrees completely and questions, and he's not the first fighter to ever do this, question how CompuBox comes about with their statistics for the punches. Because some people at home may think it's a very sophisticated system. It may have evolved over the years, and in fairness, I'm not entirely sure exactly how it's done, but from what I've seen in the past for some of these HBO broadcasts is that it's people scoring it manually ringside, or in some cases maybe in the television truck, but they're counting punches,
or at home on TV,
remotely at times as well, and they're counting punches, and anything that's not a jab, for example, is a power punch. And a lot of this is left to interpretation. You step aside for a second, you may miss the punch, you may have calculated something wrong. Like, it's not exactly something that can be 100% foolproof. And Loma and his father, some of the comments here I want to read for the decision that he lost is that he looks at this, and the quote here is, "I looked at CompuBox statistics. I really don't understand how that works. My father counted every punch that landed on me. It totaled only 150. CompuBox had 30 more. I really question how they count punches," end quote. Now, this also created some controversy. So let me ask you then, Russ, first of all, your opinion on the CompuBox scores maybe of that fight, because then CompuBox and some of the people behind CompuBox were very vocal in their answer on social media, and it kind of became a thing that a lot of people in the boxing industry were discussing this week.
I probably wouldn't even be addressing that if it wasn't for their answer that they gave, and
So you want me to read the answer in that case then?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the answer here for what you're referring to is the comments afterwards from the CompuBox forum here, of what they answered to the comments of Loma and his father was that, "Hey Loma, get over it. CompuBox has been around for 35 years, and if you and Daddy paid attention, you would know that we never said we were scoring fights, but rather providing a statistical barometer of a fighter's activity. We would not have survived this long in this ghastly business if we weren't accurate. We didn't hear any complaints from your team when we listed you as our plus-minus leader with the highest rating since Floyd Mayweather. Did Daddy recount Floyd's fights too to see if Vasily was really number one? How many punches did Daddy have you throwing, landing over the first 6 rounds versus Teofimo? Stay in your lane, bud, and we'll do the same."
It's a condescending comment towards Loma from being an industry leader. Who are you leading in? Like, you're leading in counting punches? Like, No one cares. No one in the industry cares who had the highest average, who did this. No one cares. It doesn't matter either. It doesn't matter. Great fights could happen with great guys. Doesn't matter. You win rounds. So I think they're trying to, blow their own horn a little, if you will, on how important they think they are. And they're not. They're not important. I don't even know why Loma is referencing it. But to me, I would rather we focused on, how bad the judges' cards were, because that's the cards that count more so than how bad the CompuBox numbers were. I think people should know that CompuBox is not a science. There's no electronic gadgets in the gloves that determine what punches are landing and what aren't. There's no gauge of what's considered a power punch and what's not a power punch. Purely subjective, purely their own opinion, arbitrary on what they think is a power punch, what they think lands. And I've told you before, and the example I've always given is Juan Manuel Marquez. I know that people, untrained eyes, whether they be CompuBox eyes, judges' eyes, outside of real fight people, they don't see the subtleties of blocking right here. Guy winds up with a huge shot, bang! They pressed that button and said that landed. We know that. The fighters know that didn't land it because we see the subtleties. We see what guys can do. And sometimes I don't think the judges or CompuBox, for that matter, see the same thing. It would be interesting, and I think you remember when we went to the Hall of Fame the night that Pacquiao fought
Timothy Bradley the first time. So we're talking about probably, I want to say 2012.
Okay. When we left there and we said, damn, this is a close fight. This is close. Oh, they gave it to Bradley. Okay. And we all thought that there was panic in the corner. We thought that the body language of Pacquiao felt he didn't win. Freddie Roach's body language didn't seem like it. And we didn't have the HBO feed, if you remember correctly. So we watched it. And
yeah, we had an international feed, correct?
What's that?
It was an international feed for the first Bradley Pacquiao
correct.
fight at the Hall of Fame venue, yeah.
Correct. So when we left, there were some people said, oh, Bradley shouldn't have won. Pacquiao should have won. There was a little sentiment there. Okay, no problem. By time we made the half-hour drive back to the hotel, this turned into being the robbery of the decade, in which HBO didn't give Bradley more than 2 rounds. And they just kept dismissing him as not being in the fight, and he was in the fight. Now, win, lose, I don't know. I'd have to revisit it and score it again. But I remember when I scored it there, I remember having it very, very close. I don't remember.
Yeah, no, but wait a second, Russ. I don't think you're necessarily doing yourself the best favor of arguing against statistics and stuff like that and saying that you had the Pacquiao Bradley fight as not a robbery. I think a lot of people still overall, trained eye, casual fans, whatever, had Pacquiao winning the fight. Maybe not as much as the HBO broadcast that night had Pacquiao ahead, but I think it's pretty clear that Pacquiao won the first fight against Bradley, although Bradley did better than maybe was given credit for.
My point was after the scandal of how the worst decision in boxing history was released upon the world, there was a video that came out. I wish we could find it. There was a video.
It's on YouTube of what people thought, and on the broadcast, they said, what a punch. And then you see Bradley miss it. You see Bradley block it.
That's my point. That's where I was trying to get. And the broadcasters are sitting ringside. And, Jim Lampley's out, another great shot, land. And then you see it. No, it doesn't land. As a matter of fact, it misses by quite a wide margin. And there's a left hand. No, there was no left hand there. So, I think people can be numbed into thinking what they see. And I think that's part of the narrative and the agenda, if you will. But I was just trying to point that out, not in who I thought won or did not win the fight. Just that what is said, what you are telling us counted. It landed. The videotape proved it did not. And that's why I don't trust when you say this many punches landed. I've sat and watched CompuBox numbers and said, what? That didn't look like what I was watching. Where did these numbers come from? And I don't know where they come from. There's no way of knowing that.
In fairness to CompuBox, though, I don't think it's a bad thing to have additional information for people, for statistics. You see it in all sports. I don't think it brings anything wrong. I think sometimes maybe just the importance of it gets carried away a little bit at times, and there's human error that can be involved as well. But overall, Loma, I want to get back to Loma on something here before we kind of end this discussion here, is that whether it's been the judges, whether it's been a ton of things, he has not been graceful in defeat, Loma, so far. Now, is this going to be, you think, added motivation for a guy who's already reached the pinnacle in the amateur ranks, the Olympics, pro boxing? Is this going to be all serving as motivation for kind of another comeback here at 135, or whether he goes back down to 130 eventually? Or is this something that's going to bother him so much that maybe he steps away from the sport completely? Or what's your gut feeling from having, maybe some of these comments are lost in translation, but from having been with Loma for years now in his camp, what do you think he's going to use this defeat? Because he clearly has a sour taste in his mouth since the loss.
I think there's two issues. I think he's desperately wanting of that rematch, and he doesn't have a rematch clause in the contract. So he's really trying to get himself in for a rematch. Whatever avenue he's choosing to do it from, he's trying to get that rematch. And that's he has to kind of talk his way into that rematch or fight his way into a rematch because he has no contract for it. I think that there's a lot lost in translation. I think knowing the Russian language, the way it's built, certain sayings don't translate properly into English. And I'm convinced that some of the things that are said in Russian, the word might have translated
in Russian. That's what I thought he speaks Russian. Really?
So okay. The words might be translated verbatim, but the meanings might be different. And where they say he used the word bribed, I don't think he used the word meaning that bribed as in the way we understand it.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit last week. Yeah.
You say, oh, they were already bought. They had a preconceived notion. Oh, he was on the take. You know what I mean? We'll use a word like that. If you translate he's on the take to Russian, it probably doesn't translate verbatim. But I think he was trying to say was that you're telling me I didn't deserve the fight because I didn't do anything for 6 rounds. I didn't work enough. I didn't win enough of the early rounds. And his response to that is, even if I won 2 more rounds of the first round, so even if I won 3 of the first 6 rounds, according to the judges' cards as they came out at the end, I still would not have won. And that's what he was implying, and I think that's enough of a reason why this guy deserves the rematch. He has earned the rematch on the great champion that he has been. And I'm going to
wait a second. But you said though that you would think he might even have to take a fight in between before getting the rematch.
Yeah, I'm not saying it has to be necessarily immediate. Sometimes rematches don't necessarily happen instantaneously. Correct. You might want to give Lopez a chance. Maybe he fights Cambosis, in a fight. Maybe there's a fight that happens, then comes back and fights Loma. The champion, he earned it, maybe gets another defense, that's for him, full A side for himself. That it could happen, but a rematch, eventually happens. But I think he's earned this. And I'll tell you why, Matthew, and maybe we can end on this note. If he'd have taken a path like most amateur stars take when they turn pro and run off, a dozen wins or 15 wins against low-level talent and, basic, easy wins that they get a pass and get their record to 15-0, win a world title, then Loma technically would have had like 14 consecutive title defenses, and everyone would be saying, oh my God, this guy won a title in his 15th fight and has 14 successful title defenses. But he didn't do that. He fought almost every one of his fights, except for the first 1 or 2 fights, he fought for a world title. There was a world title involved in every fight he had outside of the first couple of ones. No, even the first one. It's because the second one was a title fight, right? Against Salido.
Salido fought the second time.
he didn't take that route of padding his record with 15-0 against guys who had no chance to beat him just to say he's 15-0. He went right for the top immediately. To me, that's credit. To me, that shows something about the guy. So give the guy, he's earned the rematch.
I look forward to seeing what's going to happen in 2021. There's a lot of interesting fights to be made at 135 and around eventually the junior welterweight division as well as the 140. Final question here for Loma. Let's say Lopez does take another fight like you're saying, and Loma, being the top guy he is, doesn't really take fights against lesser opposition. He has it in his career. And Ryan Garcia can't come to terms with Tank Davis. Would you like to see Loma fight Ryan Garcia?
It would be a hell of a statement, wouldn't it?
I mean, I think that would be, we're not hearing it much in the rumor mill, but that's one of the options that I don't know how realistic it can be done with all the conflicting networks and promoters, but I would love to see a Loma Ryan Garcia fight. Maybe not right away, but if everything gets kind of mingled at 135, why not?
Why not him and Tank also? That's a great fight.
Loma and Tank?
Loma against Tank.
But the thing is, Loma and Tank is that I believe, which we've seen with Loma, is that he can be more counter-punching, more hesitant. Garcia's going to make him throw punches right away, as opposed to Tank Davis is also capable, when you see it in Campbell and other fights, of taking some rounds off. So I think entertainment-wise, I think Loma and Davis sometimes could maybe not be as exciting as a Loma. To me, a Loma-Garcia fight with the storylines that could be involved, I think that would be an unbelievable attractive matchup. But look, I don't think it's likely. I was just spitballing here with the idea of if everybody gets tied up at 135 and Loma wants to come back and is waiting for Lopez, that would be a heck of a fight, man. For the top guy for years at pound for pound against one of the up-and-coming stars, Ryan Garcia. Hey, I would love to see it.
Yeah. I mean, why not? It's not impossible. It certainly could happen. But I think Loma, like I said earlier, is deserved of a rematch. He is deserved of that. He's earned the right by what he has done for boxing, in boxing. He's deserved of that rematch. Yeah, you could say, oh, he didn't throw any punches. Okay, fine. And if he doesn't do it again and he gets blasted out and he stinks the joint out and doesn't fight and loses, okay, it's done. It's a wrap. That's it. That's what happens in boxing, But he's earned that opportunity. And fighters sometimes get fights because they've earned it. An example I could give is Golovkin and Canelo. And we talked about their both performances of Canelo against Callum Smith and Golovkin against, I don't even remember his name.
Zaramata.
On the same weekend. I think that Golovkin had the two chances, had the rematch against Canelo, had his 24 rounds against him.
Don't go back to this. He beat Canelo the first time, may have beaten him the second time. Stop taking shots at Triple G for not deserving a third fight.
I'm not taking shots. I'm saying you had two fights with him. So now prove that you're back. Canelo just beat the best guy that everyone prior to the fight said, this guy's number one. This guy's a live dog in this fight. He's there. Okay. Canelo, Triple G has to come back and prove that he deserves that shot, that third shot against Canelo.
I think there's debate that he deserves it right away, but he's probably not going to get it. And Triple G, the rumor mill is that he may be fighting a Jaime Munguia. That could be an entertaining clash at middleweight.
Absolutely. If he comes out of that looking like a beast, like the Golovkin of all, bang, bang, smash, boom. Okay, you earned it, brother. You earned it. But in the meantime, we can look and say there hasn't been that greatness to say you deserve that second shot. So I'm not taking shots. I like Golovkin.
I know. It's not the shots. I'm saying is that you're tough on the third fight for like the Golovkin. You've been consistent on you think he had his chance and it's over, and I disagree, but we don't need to rehash this every week.
It's over. I just said, prove it that you want it again, that you get it again. Canelo is proving, a dominant performance against Callum Smith. That was dominant. You want to step up now and challenge Canelo? You got to be coming off the same kind of performances that Callum Smith came up and bring in the same type of hardware.
Unless you're a mandatory, because Canelo is likely to make a WBC mandatory defense against Yildirim, right?
Yeah.
That's probably going to be the next fight until he gets then Andrade or Billy Joe Saunders, another big name
But he's
in the
fighting.
plan.
He's
So yeah,
fighting.
so interesting. There's a lot of there's a lot of potential earlier in the year. Of course, when you're in January, it's usually the time where there's fights being discussed for the springtime, and because there's not too many official fights announced yet. And we'll look forward to it because in the coming weeks we'll be able to address the rumor mill, get some people on the show, and there's always going to be some topics. Look, there's only one fight this weekend really that deserved attention, and we were able to again talk for a little while there. Tiras, any final thoughts on tonight's episode?
We went 20 minutes over our what we thought would be enough time to discuss all of this, and we had interesting perspectives on it. So, I mean, we even went back and rehashed Bradley and Pacquiao. What do you know? But
hey,
listen,
this is the fun of having no official script. This is, and look, we got to be home here in Quebec very early now at home, so a lot of time to have these discussions. And by the way, you have a new desk, right? You have a new desk area, and you have a Bernard Hopkins. This is the first time I noticed that you have the Hopkins frame in the background. I'm surprised you didn't put that down yet. Is Jean Pascal going to approve of the frame behind you?
I'm not sure, but this is up because everything that I have in my home is related to something that I've done. You know, like it's something that, you know, everything means something. It's not just random art that's been picked up. Save for that picture of Muhammad Ali, that was a gift from my sister. But
and I have one here, by the way, the list of all heavyweight champions in the history. That's one that's borrowed from you at the moment.
I was going to say that looks very, very familiar. And you know what? Just to tell you a little story about that, and then I'll get back to Hopkins. That poster that, yeah, I know. That poster that you have there, my father brought me back that poster from Las Vegas. He went, I gave him and my mom a trip to Vegas. When I first started working, you know, and I had some money, I gave them a trip to Vegas. This would have been 1980, maybe 19. Maybe.
I don't. It doesn't matter. Russ, continue.
And my father brought me back that poster from Vegas because it was a fight poster. He knew how much so he brought me that. Now this
Hopkins one.
Now this is like a fight that probably no one knows, remembers, or cares about. This was the poster for Hopkins' 20th title defense against Howard Eastman.
Yeah, now, that has some historical significance.
Yeah, but the significance it has is that I called the fight on with Dave Bontempo on HBO international feed. I called that fight there, and that's when I met Mike Tyson, and he was in the broadcast booth with us because the fight prior, Jermaine Taylor blasted out the Haitian kid. What was his name?
Not Uma? Was it Kasim?
No, it was the Haitian kid. I can't remember his name. He blasted him out in 3 rounds, and Hopkins, of course, wasn't ready to come out. So we had time to fill. And, you know, Mike Tyson sat with myself and Dave Bontempo, and, you know, we talked boxing for like a half hour with Mike Tyson while waiting for Hopkins to come out. So that has a little significance.
Oh, Daniel Edouard is the fighter.
Daniel Edouard, that's right. Daniel Edouard. He knocked him out in 3 rounds, and Hopkins wasn't ready to come out. So we had to fill, and we talked with Mike Tyson. So, yeah, wow. That's what that's there for. So, yeah.
Well, awesome. So that was, it's one of the frames, and I'm sure there'll be more to talk and discuss about throughout the weeks. And I want to wish everybody a safe weekend and have fun. And then there's not many fights, so enjoy some other sports. Maybe there's not too much boxing going on this upcoming weekend, but we'll have plenty to talk about next week, of course. And we would like for you to continue watching throughout our YouTube channel, the different clips, whether it be on Twitter, Instagram. Tell your friends who enjoy boxing, enjoy some good conversations, and do not hesitate to contact us, and we'll gladly take your questions and comments and discuss them on the next week's episode.
And a healthy and happy New Year to everybody. And I know for some people, like what's happening here in Quebec with the lockdown, you know, just stay positive, stay active, try to stay busy. You know, there's ways of keeping yourself busy and enjoying yourself. Talk to friends, call people, Zoom, Skype, whatever you have to do, and interact. Like this is the time when social media could be used for something good and not bad. So there's going to be a lot of people that are holed up, and we need to reach out to them and make sure that we're available to them as well and talk to them. So a healthy and happy New Year to everybody.
Take care. See us. Talk soon.
You got it, brother.